Hello, everyone. So today is probably, if I look at the entire course of 10C, I would say that today is probably one of the most important lessons I will ever teach you in this whole entire course. Okay, what we do today forms the basis for something that you will need to be extremely comfortable with for the next 3 years of your senior high math career. Now, the good thing about that is what I'm doing today, I've almost already done with you, okay? There's just a couple little pieces that I have to put together before I show you the whole process, but a lot of it we've actually already covered, so I'm hoping a lot of it's gonna feel comfortable with you. But this is something that you're gonna wanna take slow, you're gonna wanna pause me lots, try things yourself, compare your answers to my answers, and really take your time with it. This is something I want you to feel. If I could wish that you walked away from 10C feeling super comfortable about anything, it's factoring trinomials through decomposition, okay? Super, super important. Okay, so now that I've got your attention, let's start with just a little bit of a review. We've talked a little bit about taking greatest common factors out. So if I asked you to factor this completely, you would take a look at the 4x and the -12, and you would say, okay, what can I take out of there? I can take out a 4. So a 4 comes to the front. Remember, factoring is creating a multiplication sentence. So the 4 comes to the front, and then I open up a bracket, and I say what's left when that 4 gets divided out of those two terms. So what would be left is x minus 3. So my final answer there would be 4 bracket x minus 3. The next example you're looking at, we've done many of these as well. You have 4 terms, and you do not have a greatest common factor. When you have 4 terms and you don't have a greatest common factor, you want to think about grouping. So you want to look at the front two, and you want to look at the back two, and you want to say, hey, what can I take out of an x cubed and a 2x squared? What can I take out of a 3x and a 6? Okay, well, out of the x cubed and the 2x squared, you can take out an x squared. That would leave you with x plus 3. And out of the 3x plus 6, you can take out a, I said x plus 3. That should have left you here with x plus 2. That's my bad. Over here, you can take out the 3, and you'd be left with x plus 2. So now, when I do that, I see that the brackets are the same. That means what's inside the brackets actually counts as a common factor to each of those two separate terms. I pull the common factor out, x plus 2 comes out, and I'm left with x squared plus 3. And remember, we've talked about the fact that when you have two binomials multiplied together, the order of those binomials doesn't matter. Okay, so whether you have x squared plus 3 times x plus 2, or whether you have x plus 2 times x squared plus 3, totally fine either way. Okay, so now what I'd like us to do is we're gonna shift our attention kind of to a little game to play for a sec. And really, this is the last thing I need to teach you. Once you see what I'm doing with this game, I'm gonna put all this together, and we're gonna learn a process of how to factor trinomials through a process called decomposition. So now, yesterday we talked about it through a process of using algebra tiles and trying to form a rectangle. This will take us away from the algebra tiles so that we're just dealing with the numbers. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do in this game. We need to find two numbers that multiply together to give you -36 and add together to give you 16. Now, what I want you to think about that is I want you just to start writing down factors of 36, okay? If I want two numbers that multiply together to give me a negative number, and I want them to add together to give me a positive number, that means one number has to be negative, and it also tells me that the bigger number has to be my positive. Okay, so I just start writing factors of 36. I always go in order, because if you don't go in order, you're gonna miss something. Okay, so 1 times 36. Now, if my 1 was negative, that would give me 35, so that's not gonna work. Next guy would be 2 times 18. If my 2 is negative, that would give me 16. I'm done. These are the two numbers that would multiply together to give me -36 and add together to give me 16. Okay, so 18 and -2. Okay, so now we move on. Two numbers that multiply together to give me 1 and add together to give me -2. If I want something to multiply together to give me a positive, either both numbers have to be positive or both numbers have to be negative. So when you're looking at that, you're going to see, hey, that's -1 and -1. -1 times -1 is +1. -1 plus -1 is -2. Okay, multiply together to give me 24 and add together to give me -14. I'm multiplying to a positive, but I'm adding to a negative. That tells me that both numbers have to be negative. So again, I just start with my factors of 24. Go in order. If you don't go in order, what's going to happen is that one you don't want, or that one you do want, just never pops into your brain, okay? So 1 times 24, if I made both of those negative, I'd multiply those together to get positive 24. But when I add them together, I would get -25, and that doesn't work, okay? So you go to the next one. Next one would be -2 and -12. That's my pair, okay? When I multiply -2 and -12 together, I have positive 24. But when I add them together, I'll get -14. Okay, -12 and 4. Give that a shot. Going through factors of 12. 1 times 12, one of them has to be negative, and my adding together number is negative. That tells me my larger number this time should be my negative. So I'm going to put a negative on the 12. 1 plus -12 is -11, so that doesn't work. Go to the next guy. 2 and -6. There's my pair, okay? That would add together to give me -4. Okay, -72 and -21. Again, one number is going to have to be negative. That's the only way to multiply two numbers together and get a negative. Because the 21 is negative, it tells me that the larger number has to be my negative one. So 1 times 72, that's going to give me -71. That's not the pair I'm looking for. 2 times 36, that's going to give me -34. 3 times 24, that's going to give me -21. That's what I'm looking for right there. Okay, so 3 and -24. And then multiply together to give me -1 and add together to give me 0. Did you find those guys? That would be +1 and -1. Okay. Okay, you guys try these three. Pause me for a second, try the three by yourself, see what you can come up with. Okay, and so you should have gotten -13, -1, 17, -2, and 3 and 3, okay? Those are the pairs that would add together to give me the top and multiply together to give me, sorry, I said that backwards. Those are the pairs that would multiply together to give me the top and then add together to give me the bottom of my X there, okay? Awesome. All right, so yesterday we looked at the notion that we can figure out binomial factors of a trinomial by arranging the trinomial into rectangles. And we learned, or we didn't learn yesterday, but we reiterated yesterday that dimensions of the rectangle were the binomial factors. Okay, so today we're going to look at doing this algebraically, and we're going to look at factoring trinomials in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not 1. You'll sometimes hear this called as complex trinomials. But that's essentially what we're doing today. Okay, so here we go. Expand the following. If I asked you to expand this, you would go, okay, I need to take my 3x and multiply it by the 2x plus 1, and I need to take my 5 and multiply it by the 2x plus 1. Okay, that's old hat to you now. You've been doing that for a long time. Then I distribute, and I end up with 6x squared plus 3x plus 10x plus 5. Now those two in the middle can come together. And so my final answer would be 6x squared plus 13x plus 5. Now, remember that factoring is going the other way. So where I want to key in is those two numbers that I've circled in that middle line. Somehow I have to figure out how to arrive at those two numbers, because what I want to do now is I want to start here and get myself back to here. Okay? Well, going from here to here, you're already comfortable with. Okay? That is the factoring where I have 4 terms and I don't have a greatest common factor, so I factor the front two and factor the back two. Going from here to here, you are already comfortable with. Okay? That's when you look at that and you see, hey, there's a greatest common factor of 2x plus 1. I'm going to factor the 2x plus 1 out, and I'd be left with 3x plus 5. All we have to do right now, all we have left in this game that we're playing is we have to figure out how to go from here to here. That's the one thing we don't know yet. So somehow we have to decide why this 13 gets broken into 3x plus 10x. And once we figure that out, we know this whole process, okay? All right, so remember that factoring is the reverse process of what we just did together. So we need to start at the bottom and work our way to the top. Now, let's deal with this 3x plus 10x that we're trying to figure out. It looks like the 13x that is in the middle term at the bottom became the two middle terms, the 3x plus the 10x. But why? What can we say about the numbers 3 and 10? Well, think about that game we started with this morning when or this evening, I guess, if you're watching it at night. We were looking for two numbers that multiplied together to give you something and added together to give you something, right? So if my friendly numbers here are 3 and 10, why don't we pick on that 3 and 10 for a second? 3 and 10 would add together to give you 13 and would multiply together to give you 30, right? 3, 10, 3 plus 10 is 13, 3 times 10 is 30. So they add together to give you 13 and they multiply together to give you 30. Okay, well, we see the 13. That's not a problem, okay? The 13 shows up right there. Let me circle that for you. There's the 13. So we know that we are looking for two numbers that must add together to give you this middle term here. Okay, remember we're trying to go this way. Okay, so the 30 though, do you see where the 30 shows up? I'm hoping you do. It's 6 times 5. Okay, 6 times 5. Now, remember at the beginning of this, we said that this was a trinomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So what we have to think about is we're always looking for two numbers that multiply together to give you AC, whatever that coefficient A is times whatever that coefficient C is. Those outside numbers get multiplied together, okay? So we are looking for two numbers that multiply together to give you the AC and add together to give you the B. That's it. Once you figure those numbers out, every other process that we do here, you've already done, okay? So I'm gonna take, whoops, sorry. I don't know why that's going backwards on me. I'm going to take this example. We're gonna flip it upside down so that it's a factoring example. And we're gonna look at the process together, okay? Then we're gonna do a bunch on our own. So this is called decomposition. Now, if you are decomposing, what's happening? You're breaking down, okay? The reason we call this decomposition is because we are decomposing, or we're breaking down that middle term into the two friendly terms that will allow us to continue this process, okay? All right, so what do? Here's the steps. First thing we do is we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to get me 30 and add together to get me 13. I often will write those in this little X shape. You don't have to, it's just a way for me to remember what I'm looking for. And we figured out that those two numbers would be 3 and 10. So once I broke it down into 3 and 10, I get this 4-term polynomial, and I don't have a greatest common factor here. So now I'm looking at factoring the front two and factoring the back two. I can take out the 3x and I'd be left with 2x plus 1. And I take out a 5 and I'm left with 2x plus 1, which is totally what I wanted to happen. I now have a common factor in the brackets. So the common factor gets pulled to the front and I'm left with 2x plus 1 as one binomial being multiplied by 3x plus 5 as the other binomial. How could I check my answer? Well, that's pretty easy. I could just take 2x plus 1 and 3x times 5 and multiply it out and see if I go back to here, okay? Again, I know I've said this in other videos, but it's really important. If you're gonna check your work, put it off to the side. Do not have it look like part of your answer. Otherwise, I'd think you don't know where to stop, okay? Remember that if the question says factoring, your answer needs to have brackets in it. If the question says expand and simplify, your answer should not have brackets in it, okay? All right, so let's try these together. So 8x squared plus 18x plus 9. What am I looking for? I'm looking for two numbers that would multiply together to give me 72. That's where that 8 times 9 is. and add together to give me 18. Okay, so I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 72 and add together to give me 18. They would both be positive here, so I just start going through my factors of 72. I've got 1 times 72, that's not going to work. I've got 2 times 36, that gives me 38, that's still not going to work. I've got 3 times 24. I got 4, 72 divided by 4. Do you know what 72 divided by 4 is? Let's check. 72 divided by 4 is 18. So 4 and 18, that would give me 22. So I'm still not there, but you see that I'm getting closer each time when I add those together. Those numbers are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. 5's not going to work. 6 times what? 6 times 12, that works right there. 6 plus 12 is 18, right? Okay, so go in order. It's not going to take you long if you go in order, but what that will allow you to do is it doesn't allow your brain to skip over the right one. Okay, so I'm going to take my 18x and I'm going to break it down into 6x and 12x. Okay, so now I've got, it doesn't matter which one I put first. I put the 12x before the 6x. You could have put the 6x before the 12x. That totally doesn't matter. So the 8x squared stays in the front, the 9 stays in the back. So now I'm looking at a 4-term polynomial where I don't have a greatest common factor. So I'm going to look at regrouping. I'm going to factor the front 2, factor the back 2. Out of the 8x squared plus 12x, I could take out a 4x, and that would leave me with 2x plus 3. Over here, I could take out a 3, and that would leave me with 2x plus 3. So I get super excited. My heart goes pitter-patter because I have 2x plus 3 in the brackets on both. That means 2x plus 3 is a greatest common factor. I can pull it out, and I'd be left with 4x plus 3. So 2x plus 3 times 4x plus 3, when I multiply those together, that would get me back to the 8x squared plus 18x plus 9. So what have I done? I've taken the trinomial 8x squared plus 18x plus 9, and I have factored it into the multiplication of two binomials, where one of them is 2x plus 3, and the other is 4x plus 3. Okay? All right, 18y squared minus 35y plus 12. Don't worry about changing the letter. It's just a letter change. Everything stays the exact same. So I'm going to multiply 18 by 12. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 216 and add together to give me negative 35. Okay, multiply together to give me 216, add together to give me negative 35. I've got my calculator handy. We're going to do this together so that I prove to you it does not take as long as you might feel. When I add these together, I get a negative answer. And when I multiply them, I get a positive. That means both numbers have to be negative, okay? So first one is going to be 1 and 216. If I make those both negative, that is not going to get me negative 265. Sorry, 216. Next guy is negative 2 and negative 108. That's not going to work. 216 divided by 3 is 72. Negative 3, negative 72. That's not going to get me to negative 35 yet, okay? I just have a calculator. I'm going 216 divided by 1, 216 divided by 2, 216 divided by 3, okay? Don't make this a thing. Don't make this sound complicated, okay? All you're doing is you're listing the factors until you find something friendly. So where did I leave off? 3. So 216 divided by 4 is 54. Still not going to get me negative 35, but I'm getting closer. 216 divided by 5, I know doesn't work because it ends in 6. 216 divided by 6 is 36. Closer, but not there yet. 216 divided by 7 doesn't work. That gives me like 30.8571426. That's not pretty. 216 divided by 8, 27. Negative 8, negative 27. Hey, look at that. There's my friendly pair. Negative 8 plus negative 27 is negative 35. So now I'm going to decompose the negative 35. That's why this is called decomposition. I'm going to decompose the negative 35 into negative 8 and negative 27. So I've got my 4 terms now, 18y squared minus 8y minus 27 plus 12. I have 4 terms with no greatest common factor. I'm going to factor out the front 2, factor out the back 2. I can take out a 2y from the front, which leaves me with 9y minus 4. and then I can take out that negative 3. Remember, if the front dude's negative here, you always want to take the negative out, okay? So I took out the negative 3, and that left me with 9y minus 4. My heart goes pitter-patter. I have the same thing in the brackets there. As soon as I see that same thing, and remember, you're supposed to have the same thing here, right? You found the friendly numbers. You found what's going to make this work. So if you get down to this stage and you don't have a friendly situation here, something went wrong. Either you chose the wrong numbers or you made a mathematical error along the way, okay? So 9y minus 4 is common to both. I pull it out and I'm left with 9y minus 4 times 2y minus 3, okay? All right, 3n squared minus 2n minus 8. Again, looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me that negative 24, add together to give me to the negative 2. So I just go through factors of negative 24 until I find my friendly pair. For this one, it would be negative 6 and positive 4. So I break my negative 2 down. Remember, whatever letter goes with the negative 2 has to go with both of these, because these have to add together to get you that negative 2 again. So I've decomposed. Now I'm left with my 4 terms. I'm going to factor the front 2, factor the back 2. So what can I take out of a 3n squared and a negative 6n? That would be a 2n. What can I take out of a 4n and a negative 8? That would be a 4. And when I do that, I'm left with n minus 2 in both brackets. So n minus 2 is a common factor. I pull it to the front, and I'm left with 3n plus 4. So n minus 2 times 3n plus 4 is the binomial factors of 3n squared minus 2n minus 8. Okay, I'm hoping this is starting to make sense. I'm hoping it's starting to click. We're going to go through a few more examples together, but I really want to stress, the more practice you can do with this, I promise the better this is going to be for the whole 3 years of senior high, okay? This is extremely important that you are comfortable with what's happening as well as understanding what's happening, okay? Remember that we're creating a multiplication sentence from a trinomial. Okay, 10m squared minus 9m minus 9. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me negative 90 and add together to give me negative 9. So start going through your factors of negative 90, just like I've been doing. Find me the friendly pair. The friendly pair you should have found me was negative 15 and positive 6. Remember, I would be looking for two numbers where one of them is negative. That way, when I multiply, I get a negative number. And when I add them together, I need a negative number. That told me my bigger number had to be the negative guy. So now I'm looking at 10m squared minus 15m plus 6m minus 9. Taking a look at the front two, seeing what I can factor out, I can take out a 5m, and that would leave me with 2m minus 3. And then over here, I can take out a 3, and that leaves me with 2m minus 3. So 2m minus 3 is the greatest common factor. Bring it to the front. My two binomials end up being 5m plus 3 times 2m minus 3. Okay, 6a squared plus 17a minus 13. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 6 times negative 3. So multiply together to give me negative 18, add together to give me positive 17. That would be negative 18 and positive 1. Sorry, I said that backwards because if I added those together, I'd be at negative 17. So now we'll switch that. That would be positive 18 and negative 1. Okay, positive 18 times negative 1 would give me negative 18. Positive 18 minus 1 would still give me positive 17. So those are my friendly numbers, okay? Okay, so I've decomposed my 17a into 18a minus 1a. Factor the front two, factor the back two. Out of the front two, I'm going to take out a 6a. That would leave me with a plus 3. Over here, remember the front dude's negative, so I want to take out the negative 1. That would leave me with a plus 3. So I end up with a plus 3 times 6a minus 1. Okay. Okay, 12x squared minus 8x plus 1. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 12 and add together to give me negative 8. They have to multiply together to give me a positive. So that means both numbers have to be negative in order to add together to give me a negative. So going through my factors of 12, that would be -6 and -2. From the front two, I'm going to take out a 6x. In the back two, I'll end up taking out a -1. So I end up with 2x minus 1 times 6x minus 1. Okay. Any questions you have on any of these examples, please feel free to connect with me, okay? Okay, 10y squared minus 22y plus 4. Now I want to, before you get all excited and tell me that I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 40, I don't agree with you. This is now a multi-step factoring question, okay? I've been leading you up to this, but what I want you to think about is the first thing you should always consider, always consider is there a greatest common factor, okay? You should always take out the greatest common factor first for two reasons. Number one, you're gonna have to take it out at some point anyway because you have to completely factor. Number two, if you take it out at the beginning, you're dealing with smaller numbers and it just makes your life a whole lot easier. So when I look at 10y squared minus 22y plus 4, 2 is common to all of them, so I'm just going to take out the 2 right away. So now I'm looking at 5y squared minus 11y plus 2. The 2 I took out is in the front. He will stay in the front the whole time. He's along for the ride now. Don't drop him, okay? He does not disappear. But now I'm going to focus inside here on the 5y squared minus 11y plus 2, looking for two numbers that multiply together to give you 10 and add together to give you -11. That would be -1 and -10. So I break my -11 down into -1 and -10y. Okay, now I'm going to factor the front two, factor the back two. Don't drop that 2. That 2 has to stay there the whole time. From the front two here, I can take out a 5y, and that would leave me with y minus 2. Here, I'll take out a -1, and that will leave me with y minus 2. And so my final answer is that 2 that I originally took out times the binomials that I have left, which would be y minus 2 and 5y minus 1. Okay. All right, 6x squared plus 3x minus 9. Again, very first thing I want to ask myself is, do I have a greatest common factor? In this case, it's 3, so I want to take out the 3. Okay, then I'm looking at two numbers that multiply together to give me that -6 and add together to give me this 1. Okay, that ends up being 3 and -2. Factor the front two, factor the back two. Out of the front two, I'm going to take out an x. Out of the back two, I'm going to take out a -1. Final answer should be 3 times 2x plus 3 times x minus 1. Okay? All right, 15a squared b plus 7ab minus 2b. Now, at first glance, this may look more complicated, but what I want you to see is your first question to always ask yourself was, what? Do I have a greatest common factor? Well, b is the greatest common factor, so just take out b, b goes to the front, and then I'm actually left with something that looks way more friendlier, okay? I have 15a squared plus 7a minus 2. Well, now I'm just looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me that -30 that you see, and add together to give me 10. Okay, that'd be 10 and minus 3. Factor the front two, factor the back two. Out of the front two, I'll take out a 5a. Out of the back two, I'll take out a -1. And that leaves me with b. Again, just as a warning, be careful not to drop that b, okay? That once you factor something out, it never disappears. It always stays at the front. So we end up with b times 3a plus 2 times 5a minus 1, okay? Now, I know we've gone through lots of examples together. I'm hoping you feel good about it. You're not gonna know how good you feel until you do it on your own. So make sure you're going through your practice questions. Make sure you're checking your answers so that you know you've got the process down right. Make sure you're communicating things super clearly, and make sure you're coming and chatting with me if you have any questions. Okay? Have fun, and we'll chat soon. Take care.